Seeking life-changing knowledge? You've stepped into the right place. Welcome to Bold Perspectives with Samantha Postman. In every episode, discover, explore, and grow your personal or professional self with real and relevant knowledge to help you improve your own life and make a positive impact in the world around you. Tune in for honest insights, life advice, inspirational wisdom, and the occasional salty rants. Because you are meant to live a better and bolder life.
All right, so today we are covering quite a bit. I'm pretty sure you're all going to want to stay in tune for every part that we've got. You don't want to miss a thing. We cover everything from this beautiful metaphor of dance and how each relationship that we're in with people around us, as well as clients and people that we work with, is a dance, a beautiful dance, and how we adjust to the moods of other people, the cultures around us, the culture they came from, the cultures of their ancestors, and how we learn to do this dance. And the better we get at, the more people are around, we learn how to dance in respect of the people around us. And then we're going to talk about culture with that, as well as just things that you're not going to even expect. So on today's show, I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey as a tax accountant and how a lot of people are surprised that there's there's definitely a counseling therapist aspect to it that a lot of people just don't really know anything about, and my journey with that. We're also going to talk today about English, because our guest today is in Scotland, but learned English when he lived in Nigeria. And then of course I'm from Canada. And so just the variations that we get with different of English and how that influences our culture. And then we're also going to talk about self-awareness and how self-awareness improves our living, our mental wellness, and it improves the people around us. And when the people around us feel better, when we're around self-awareness, that it's going to just make our lives better. And also just we're going to talk a bit about awareness of what it's like for other people around who are just doing a journey like us, and learning how to adjust to other people's lives, and how they express and how they process information and how they process their lives. So we've got a treat for you. That definitely doesn't sound as exciting as it actually is. Well, it does sound exciting to me, but I promise you that you will be enriched by the depth that my guest brings to us today, and the organic conversation that happens between us, because the sweet spots, the sweet conversations happen in the organic, when we're not scripted, when we just when we let both of us go and then just jump onto whatever sparks the connection, and then just grow that. So stay tuned, and I hope that you're going to get as much out of it as we did today. Hey everyone, it's Samantha Postman with the Bold Perspectives podcast, and I've got a treat for you today. All the way from Scotland, we have got a psychiatrist with us today, and you are in for some interesting learning with us today. Who we've got is Dr. Ayomide, and I'm going to pass it over to him so he can do an introduction, a little bit about him and how we got connected.
I'm Ayomide Adebayo. I'm a Nigerian expert in the UK. I've been here for 4.5 years. And I work in England in psychiatry. I work in general adult psychiatry, but sort of specifically intensive care, which I really love because it's intensive, which is funny because lots of people are and the patients are a bit more, I think the patients we deal with are a bit more sort of struggling a bit more. They can be a bit more agitated. But for me, it's almost like emergency, right? And it's more interesting, it's more dynamic. It's more a lot of stuff is going on, and I really enjoy it. And I guess it's one of those things where the fact that you enjoy this and that people don't like as much, it sort of makes you feel this is exactly where you should be. So that's my day job, and by night, so to speak, I write, and I write online, and I have a website. I'm currently doing a Ship 30 for 30 thing where you write a thing every day for 30 days, which is the second place where I met you, Samantha.
Right.
The first place being Rome, which is, so, well, I guess for those who don't know Rome, or Rome research, if you want to use like the proper like.
Oh, they all thought we were talking about Italy right now.
Oh, right. Oh, see, oh yeah, that's true. Not Rome. Well, it's a place actually. It is a place, but it's not a place. It's not a physical space.
Right.
It's a digital space that is inhabited by Romans. We actually call ourselves Romans. So
yeah.
So basically, Rome Research, ROAM, by the way, for anyone wanting to Google it, is like this, tool for like thinking and writing and connecting your thoughts together. And there's a book club that happens every other month or so. And Samantha and I met at the third of these book clubs, which is where we sort of ran into each other a few times. And then we ran into each other again in Ship 30 for 30, which is another thing I really love about the internet. I love the fact that it's like, as big as the internet is, you somehow run into the same people every now and then because you're sort of interested in the same thing. This is hilarious.
Well, it's kind of crazy. Right? I mean, you're in Scotland, a psychiatrist, and I'm in Southern Alberta, Canada, co-running a farm and running a strategy innovation company. And then we meet in two circles that are and even Ship 30 for 30 is a completely different entity than Rome Research Community.
Yeah.
And to be honest, listeners, by the way, Rome Research isn't the book club is, it's not like what you think where you're all like, hey, they're reading a book together, across the world. It's so much more than that. It's more like a collective intellectual community that comes together and then figures out a way to network their thought around a book and the ideas of a book. So.
It's like making notes. It's like no book club, literally, right? Because we're making notes on the book, but we cannot see each other's notes. It's like if you had a big book and everybody was writing in the margins at the same time.
Yeah, and then you can see and interact with each other's. You can see and interact with each other's notations and then grow ideas together or even just your own ideas. It was so cool.
Yeah.
So that's how we met. And so right now we are in a Ship 30 for 30 essay challenge over on Twitter. Some people are kind of adding it onto their other social media. And it's interesting because we were in a international meeting. We have these international Zoom meetings where everybody can come together at one time. And in the chat box, I made a mention about how I had invited my Instagram and Facebook tribe.
No, you mentioned it first.
Yeah, I mentioned it that I had.
And then I asked you about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So just to get everyone on board, we're getting excited before we even talk about it. So we were, oh my gosh, I'm going to go crazy already. All right. So I invited my Facebook and Instagram tribe to journey with me over on Twitter. So I started posting some of my essays. So I posted the big announcement on my Facebook and said, hey, a bunch of us are over on Twitter and we're doing this essay challenge. And I thought maybe you'd want to be part of it. So I'll include my essay over on Facebook. And so what happened is I was so excited about this, totally posted all over, announced to the world, both my worlds over there, that I'm going to do that. And then the next morning, I woke up wanting to throw up. Like, I was sick about it. I felt so anxious about the repercussions of kind of amalgamating two tribes with two different spaces. And so when we were on this group call, I kind of mentioned, I kind of freaked out and I froze. Like, I almost wanted to stop the entire process because I was worried about it. And that's what started our conversation. And you started asking me a bunch of questions in the chat about it and wanting to explore it. And then together we decided to do a podcast so everyone could explore with us.
Yeah.
Cool. So excited.
Yeah. That was, because I found it so interesting, right? Like, it was everything. It was the fact that you were willing to bring people along, and then sort of that reaction. One of the things I used to talk about, so one of the other communities I've been in is Rites of Passage.
Right.
And one of the things that I used to talk about a lot there was the intellectual isolation of that everyone, and which I think you would relate to as well. And I used to talk about the fact that no one who was on Rites of Passage And I think it would be the same for Rome. No one who was rite of passage, or not no one, but like for most people, didn't have anyone in their lives doing what they were doing.
Yeah.
Writing online, sending a newsletter out, doing all of that. Same thing with Rome. For most of us in Rome, we don't have anyone in our physical lives who's doing this stuff, right? So it's like this sort of really weird, I don't know, it's like Dungeons and Dragons in the 80s, but like,
well, I go down to the dinner table and I'm like, I just learned the coolest new thing in Rome research. We can intergalactically connect with people from across the world and share our thoughts real time. And they're all like, yeah, does someone have that auger ready? Gonna get that auger ready for the grain chart tomorrow?
It's so funny. It's so funny. It's like, okay. And I think we connect because it's like, okay, I'm not crazy, right?
Yeah, I know.
I'm not entirely losing it. But it's also just sort of, yeah, sorry, you go.
Well, I was just going to say, I just love being with people who are excited about some of the same passions we have. And that just, it's very exciting. And because of the way the internet works, I mean, I know some of us have a love-hate relationship with it, but it can be so beautiful to to be part of a Zoom with a couple hundred people from around the world who are all there for the same reason. And that's what conferences used to be. You know, I used to take these leadership conferences and I was around other people who were developing their leadership. And there's like this energy. I'd be like, I'm so excited to be here with other people who care about leadership. And, you know, and my friend who's maybe in a completely different role is just like, you are a crazy lady, like doesn't understand that at all, right? So I'm a tax expert by first trade, and I just get really excited about saving people money on taxes. And by the way, I don't do taxes really anymore, but I closed my practice. And but I'd say to my husband's like, you're such a weirdo. And I'm like, you have your hockey, I have my taxes. And he'd be like, how could you even put them in the same universe? He's like, but then when he calls me I'm insane, I'm always like, yeah, but who's the one who married me? And then it's like done, right?
6-1, right?
The weight's so fast. So anyway, we're here to talk about just growing our minds together and exploring why this particular comment I made just grabbed your curiosity. So I'll let you start out. I know you had a couple questions for me, so just let's go. So let's do that. Let's make sure we include all those like English non-equivalents.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I wrote an essay actually during Rite of Passage titled "I Speak 3 Different Englishes."
That's so good.
Which is like, I speak Nigerian English, right? And then when I was researching for it, I discovered apparently there's actually like a whole sort of body of research on this.
Right.
And it's to do with the fact that so there's English sort of so there's countries that like the US and the UK where this is where English is defined, right? And then there's countries like Nigeria that were colonized, which is where we took English and made it our own.
Right.
And then there's countries like China and like a lot of European countries where people speak English there, but they don't really care about it. So they only really speak it to communicate with international people.
Right.
So they don't actually do anything with it. Right. They just receive, what are the norms? Just tell us the norms, work with it.
And also with them,
we are in the middle ground where we create our own forms of English because now it's ours.
Well, also something too about like when in other countries like China is that they often have British teachers, but they watch American television. So they kind of have this like, they'll use British words talking to an American or, you know, to a British person using American words and not even realize that they're actually slightly different. So I find that interesting when people come over here and they'll say things and I'm like, you had a British teacher, didn't you? They're like, oh, I speak American English. And you're like, you sort of speak a little British.
Oh, man, it's hilarious.
Well, and imagine for a Westerner to have a foreigner speak English with a British/Chinese accent. It's very interesting.
I know. It's like, I joke sometimes that America has culturally colonized the world because like you can't escape like the influence of like American music and movies and like you can't, right? Like DMX died recently and so you might be shocked to know this, but like it was, for many of us growing up in Nigeria, like that was such a huge part of our growing up, right? Like I remember DMX and I'm like, I wonder if he knew that I hope he did. I hope he did.
So a couple years ago, my daughter and I were teaching English in Costa Rica, and we were living in hostels on the coastline. And in the hostels, we get like 18 to 30-year-olds from all over the world who are living intimately with us, on and off, in and out. And for 1 month, we lived with this couple from London. And so they had that London English to them. And I used to ask them all these questions, and I'm like, does it bother you that Americans like act like they own English, but you were like the inventor of English, and then they twisted it and make it sound like they're the correct English? Like somehow we're butchering the original language or something. Or they're like, here's another one.
I feel like that's the thing though. Like it's your English. It's not anyone's English. Like it's not even England's English.
Right. But it's just funny when an American says to someone from England, oh, you have an English accent. And they're like, no, you're the one with the accent.
Oh yeah, I've had people say that to me. But like, I guess no one thinks they have an accent, right? Because like you think you're speaking normally. You think you're.
But if England was the one who invented English, and then wouldn't they be the non-accent, and everything other than that would be? I don't know. Well, it's just funny because
even here in England, like I think there was a British accent, and then I came here and I realized there's no British accent. There's just all sorts of UK accent. Like there's a Scottish accent, and there's various kinds, and it's just like in America, right? Like I'm sure someone will tell you, oh, there's a difference between the way someone from New York speaks and someone from, I don't know, Boston. I couldn't tell you the difference. Right. But it all sounds like American to me, but you can, exactly.
So I'm from Southern Alberta, and when I travel around the world, everyone thinks I'm from California. Well, one, they think every blue-eyed blonde comes from California. So that's number one. And two, the way we speak. So my husband likes to joke. He always says, oh, we don't have an accent here because we speak like California. And since Hollywood movies are made there, that's the primary. But we sound a lot like California here. So no one usually knows we're Canadian if we're from this area. So they just assume we're from California.
That's hilarious. I would never have guessed. And I'm sure to you it's so obvious the difference between how Canadians speak and how Americans speak.
It can vary quite a bit, but I think Newfoundland the most. Other than that, and of course Quebec, if it's their second language. But other than that, it's not as different between Ontario to British Columbia, which is like a 4-day drive compared to, parts of the US or like even England isn't a 4-day drive from top to bottom. So, and there's a huge difference between top to bottom.
Oh, man. Do you know there's a pretty large Nigerian community in Canada? I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, actually I have some good friends from Nigeria, and we it was pretty an honor. They had us come up and help dedicate their baby in church.
Oh, that is a massive thing for us, man.
Yeah, they invited us. They invited us
man,
to that.
At that point, your family level, your family level at that point. If you get invited to baby dead, man. Yeah,
I love learning people, like being with people from other cultures and hearing their perspective on the world and their experiences. Like, I mean, you can't even get a storybook with that good. So I love it. It really enriches my life. So.
Oh, that's so good. I used to work my first job out of medical school. So, well, not medical. So like after medical school in Nigeria, after university, not just medical school in Nigeria, you have to do like a year of like community service stuff. But like, and most people would probably end up teaching. Not everyone, but a lot of people end up teaching. If you're a doctor, you end up as a doctor because you probably just posted like some rural part of the country where like there's not many. So like I was working in a hospital, but like, yeah, anyway, it's a whole thing. But then you come back. And so when I say my first year out of that, which is like your first year of actually working as a sort of free agent, I guess, right, it's meant to integrate the country. That's because Nigeria is massive. So that's what that thing is for.
Right.
My first year out of that, I worked in a private hospital that was doing Canadian immigration medical examinations. So it was fun.
Right.
And we're like one of two of those in the country. So we're seeing on average, we're probably seeing half of the people living for Canada. So it used to be so interesting to me to see everyone. and ask, because usually by the time you're doing the medical exams, you're probably a go for a visa, except there's something really massively wrong with your medicals. But it has to be like really massive. Like even if it was like TB, because I remember we had someone with like TB, and the only thing was, oh, well, tell them that they need to get treatment, and then once they get treatment, they can go. Or HIV was fine, you just need to start on treatment. Like so, even for like pretty massive things, they would still get the visa, except for something really like, it had to be something really, really bad. But it was interesting to meet all those people. And like just hear their stories and their reasons and all of that.
Yeah. I also, one of my favorite things to ask people that I meet is, what is your cultural reentry shock when you go back home? So, I mean, you just see your own culture in a completely new light once you've been away for quite a period of time and then come back. And I find that so fascinating to hear what it is about your culture that you didn't notice until you had a reentry shock.
I haven't gone back, but I have had a lot of things that I've thought about. So I've been doing Ship 30 for 30, and a lot of what I write about is culture, because I'm very interested in culture.
Yeah,
actually, no, I'm very interested in how people behave.
Yeah, me too.
But if you're interested in how people behave,
aren't you a psychiatrist?
Culture.
Aren't you a psychiatrist? So there.
Well, you see, that's the thing. Like, I'm like
that's
this.
That's a good fit.
I'm not like this because I'm in psychiatry. I entered psychiatry because I'm like this, and this was the only area of medicine that I felt like would allow me to explore that and just keep playing with it.
Right.
When I told people I was going to psychiatry, like literally nobody was surprised. like nobody who knew me, like everybody, like I never thought about that, but now that you say it, I can't imagine anything else that you would do.
Right.
Right. But like, and when you're interested in people, you have to be interested in culture, I think, because you know the cultures were part of shape us, and I find it so fascinating. So like, I have this thing that I often like to say, that culture is the things we take for granted.
Yeah.
And that really came home to me when I was in this conversation on Twitter one day, and someone was talking about how it would be very lovely for people to sort of, you know, help people that are new to their culture and tell them the things about their culture that they need to know. And I was like, actually, as someone who's been on the other side of that, I can tell you, you don't know what to tell people about your culture because you don't know it.
No. Well, you know what they say, a fish doesn't know they're in water.
No.
They can't see the water.
Like and that is so fascinating to me, because it means that the only way to really see your culture is to engage with somebody who is not part of your culture.
Right. Yep.
And then you can start to actually see through the eyes of that other person and start to see, so this is what, and I feel like those are the people that can then help other people, because it's like I've engaged enough with outsiders to my world, enough to be able to help a new outsider to my world, into my world, right? But you have to, so it's so fascinating to me. And so there's lots of things I've seen about Nigerian culture, you know, without necessarily even re-entry, but like just by virtue of having left.
Yeah.
And then knowing that and sort of carrying it with me, because in a sense, I do carry it with me all the time.
But you also have people who are fresh out of Niger that you're encountered with, and then you'll be like, oh, right, I forgot. This is how
you're still dealing with that, right?
You're like, oh yeah, I gotta get my brain back there a minute.
I was telling someone recently, like, that she's a new Nigerian doctor who just joined where I'm working. And I was saying to her that, you know, you need to say, like, however many thank yous and pleases you say like 10 times more. Because that's what it means to be English.
Well, I actually met a guy from Iran, and he said to me, I have never said more sorry in my entire life than 1 year living in Canada. He's just like, I feel like all I do is
true.
apologize.
That's what people say about you guys as well.
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Like,
oh, it's so funny. It's so funny because, like, in Nigeria, we're very direct. Like, if you want something, just say you want it. But in England, I'll never forget the first time someone said, oh, do you think you would maybe want to consider it? I was like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because I thought they were asking me a genuine question. And I was later realized that was an instruction.
My London friends told me English is so bad that you don't even speaking English anymore. It's just a bunch of bumper words and soft words.
It's so funny.
It's so cryptic.
I've gotten better at it now because I'm medicine, right? Which is like such a sensitive sort of, space to be, right? Like I'm not like, So like I had to learn really fast because it's like a high people touch, a high touch environment, so to speak. And in psychiatry, which is even more high touch.
Yeah.
But I love it. One of my favorite things to do is to talk to patient relatives over the phone.
Oh, yeah.
Because, and I just realized it recently, so it's different with patients because you see them every day and over time you build a rapport, you build trust. With patient relative, this is usually going to be like my first call, right?
Right.
So I'm talking to this person over the phone. I've never talked to, I should turn down listening. It's creating lines on my face, which is distracting. I made my face small just because of the lights.
Oh, I think
noticed.
It looks fine. I would have let you know if you weren't. Good.
All right. Yeah. And then it's, so like this is like me first time talking to a patient's relative. I've never spoken to this person. And usually they're upset, right? Because usually I don't want to talk to you otherwise. They're not like calling you to say, oh, I just want to say you're doing a great job. That's not usually why people call the doctor. It's really like, I think something is going wrong and I'm upset and I want to find out. And I think of it like, this is my customer service part of my job, right?
Mm-hmm. So, well, they're releasing some anger, so that's a service. So,
Sorry?
They're releasing some anger, so that's a service.
Yeah, no, it's customer service. Like this is me, like I'm a doctor, but I think of those calls as this is a customer service. Entering a customer service role, right? Yeah. That's what this is. And I love doing them because I think of them as a dance, right?
Oh yeah.
It's a dance. And I love them because I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know what this person is feeling. I'm going to try and figure out what they're dancing and figure out how to dance with them.
Right.
And I love that. That's fun for me.
Yeah, I love that.
And I realized after the second or third one of those that I really enjoy these. And especially because I think I'm good at them.
Hmm. Well, if you love it, you probably are. Like if you have a passion for it and it makes you excited, you're probably really good at it. Yeah,
because everyone hates them. Like even people here would be like, oh, this patient wants to talk to you, do you want to talk to them? And everybody does is like people are almost sort of trying to like pass it off.
Yeah.
And the nurses are like, they don't know what to do. And I'm like, yeah, I'll talk to them. And then I do, and it doesn't always work out, but like more times than not, it's worked out. But like what I really enjoy is not working. It's not that it worked out, it's getting to working out. Right. I love the process of getting to working out, of trying to figure out what that's going to look like.
Well, and do you love the process of like getting another facet of someone? Because every time you interact with somebody in their outer circle, you're learning something new about your patient.
Yeah. I love it. It's so good. Yeah. And then, it's always nice, and then maybe the person, finishes and they're like, a lot of times what I've realized, many of them are just upset at the system.
Yeah. I've learned that more and more. It's something that's really helped me a lot in my life is to realize that when people are venting at us, it's often because of something.
It's not you, exactly.
It's often not something we did. It could be even something we did that maybe triggered them and reminded them of someone else. And then it just kind of came out. Or sometimes I've noticed that we all talk out loud. We just do it differently. I'll talk out loud when no one's in the room, but some people, they talk out loud, but against the person across from them. So one time I had a guy like totally lay into me about something. And then halfway through, I was like, this isn't even really relevant to anything that was part of our past. And then I was like, oh, he's talking to himself right now. I'm just... And I was just like, okay, whatever. So someone's like, aren't you upset that he reamed you out? And I'm like, no, he wasn't really talking to me. He was talking to himself. And that really helped a lot. I was just like, well, I could, there was a teeny little bit in there I probably could have learned from and was like, and I did. I was like, okay, that's triggered him. But I was like, whatever. So that has helped a lot, especially as a female, because we get so insecure when, and we're very verbal with each other, women are. And sometimes when I realize that sometimes they're not really talking to me directly or criticizing me directly, then it doesn't I'm able to kind of like let it go off of me a little more. I like to think sometimes of us as tape. You know, when we're healthy, we're one-sided tape. So when someone kind of sets something on us, it'll just like slide right off. But if I'm really sensitive and hurting and for multiple reasons, and I'm double-sided tape, that same conversation is going to stick to me. And I can choose, I can't always, if I'm in a really bad mental place, I can't always choose if I'm double-sided tape and the other person's not going to know. But I sometimes consciously go, okay, this is when I need to be one-sided tape, and I'm just going to let it slide right back. I'm just going to let it slide off. And it's just a conscious physical thing I'll do. I'm like, oh, it's sliding off right now. And then I just sit there and I'm like, wait till they're done. And I'm like, sounds like you're having a bad day.
Oh yeah. Oh man. I love that idea of they're talking to themselves. And I love it because it makes me think. So I don't know if this is what you're thinking when you say it, but it makes me think of they're talking to themselves and you're just there to listen.
Facilitate.
Not to insert yourself into that conversation.
Yeah.
You know, which we often do, don't we?
And honestly, I don't think we need to necessarily correct them either. Be like, this doesn't really apply to me. I have no idea why you just did this. You know, I think in the end, a lot of people will realize it when they walk away and have time to analyze the conversation, because we're all human and we are going to microanalyze a situation where we've kind of reamed somebody out. And maybe they're going to think they're in the right, but that doesn't make it true. Just because they think they were right to do it doesn't make it true. So anyway, it just really has helped me a lot. And I teach it, like I mentor lots of young adults, and it's one of the first things I teach them. I say, remember, when people are talking to you, often they're talking to themselves. They're just getting out and expressing and exploring something that's going on in them. And it has very little to do. Sometimes you just didn't happen to be there. You know, but I think that's what happens with children. You know, they come home and they're angry about school things and they just let out all their emotions, but they're angry because their sibling took the toy too early, when really they're angry about something that happened at school. Yeah. So, you know, but they're just expressing because that's where it comes out. So anyway, this is a little tool I picked up along the way, and it's been really helpful.
I love it. Would you mind if I used it in an essay?
Oh, go right ahead. Well, you're going to get a recording of this. I'm probably going to use some of this recording.
I feel like I'm going to get a lot of ideas from this in essays, from this conversation.
Well, I was telling you, I had one with Casey Lee on Saturday, and oh my gosh, it was magic. And I probably could write 10 essays out of our conversation. And I've written a few, and then I've noticed there's a few things in her essays where I'm like, hey, that came out of our conversation. So it's pretty cool. But hey, that's why we're meant to like be with each other. Like, let's, you know, if we sharpen each other and grow each other and build on each other ideas, I mean, that's where new ideas come from, because no one person can contain all the best ideas. It's when we meet our minds together that we come up with really great ideas.
My favorite quote right now is this thing I saw from Salman Ansari's on his Twitter. Not his Twitter, it was an essay actually that he wrote. But it's a quote from someone else, from this lady who is in neurology or something, I can't remember. And it's basically that the smallest unit of survival is 2 humans. Yeah. And I love that. I love that so much. I love that idea of like, really... you know, like forget about all that sort of what if you're stranded alone on an island. You know, so, well, the one thing you need? The one thing you need is another person.
You need a male and a female. You might need one of the opposite sex, and then it's got multiple layers to it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I love the idea because it's something I think I'm realizing as I grow older, that you know that you need other people. Yeah. Like for literally anything. Yeah. You need other people. So yeah.
Well, being alone has value, but you can't be alone forever. So, and you can't provide you can't solely provide for yourself without somebody else's input or help or contribution. I should use it. I like that word better. Without somebody else's contribution.
When you said being alone, I just thought of that made me think of I think it's Ursula K. Le Guin. There's this line from one of her Wizard of Earthsea books that's something along the lines of, I can't remember this well, it's much more eloquent than what I'm going to say. But it's basically something along the lines of, it's the silence that gives the word its meaning.
Mm.
Right? Like, if not, it's just noise. It's the silence before the word and after the word that makes the word sort of, like, the word has to exist. And it's just that reminder that, you know, it's the aloneness that gives, like, they feed each other, right? The aloneness gives our community meaning, but the community also gives our solitude meaning.
You know, that reminds me, a while ago when I actually came up with something not maybe as eloquent as that, but I remember writing something like this, something like, the world's the one that gives me the thoughts, but it's the worlds that disrupt my thought process. So
that is good. That is good.
So it's like, you know, the world is a disruption.
It's a constant tension.
Yeah, I love that, because sometimes I'm like, I just need to be alone in my thoughts, but it's from the world that I have my thoughts. But so I need the world for the thoughts, but then I don't want to be disrupted from them. So the world is an interruption to me, but it's also an inspiration to me.
So it's figuring out, like, it's a tension you just sort of keep engaging, isn't it? Like, yeah.
And we can resent it if we haven't had enough time to process it, but or on our own terms.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I found the quote: "For a word to be spoken, there must be silence before and after." That's the quote.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So, like, it grabbed it because I was fascinated by that thing of, you know, you probably not having anyone in your life who is into this thing. And then it's like this secret thing that you do, right? Your sort of what you do at night, right? Like
your alter ego, your
superhero identity, right? And like now they found out that you're Bruce Wayne and they don't know what to do about it. So I guess for me, it was, first of all, like, I was curious as to, one, why did you, what were you thinking when you made the decision? Like, did you think about it, and did you sort of foresee that was going to happen? Or, well, I'm guessing you didn't, but like, what did you, like, just what were you thinking pre, and then like, what, like, and then obviously, like, you've talked about how you felt after, but like, what was the, like, if you could boil down what you were thinking after to one thought, what would it have been?
The after? But
like, shit. First of all, like, what were you thinking when you, so let me ask them one time. What were you thinking when you invited them in? Or when you shared it with them?
Well, one of them was, I just wanted to include them in the journey. I have a huge following on my personal Facebook. It's probably close to 1,000. And often people will write in there encouraging comments like, I love living the world through your eyes, or, I travel a lot and sometimes I post about traveling, and that's not an opportunity that a lot of people get. And just, I see the world from a different perspective, and I often get good feedback from people who want to have coffee with me to talk about it. So I thought, well, here's a way to include them. Obviously, I can't be there all the time, and I can't keep up 2 platforms all the time. It's just too much. And I'm kind of off Facebook for multiple reasons for the most part. So I thought, hey, let's just include them in, and maybe if they get value out of it, great. So that was kind of my initial reason. But then I'm kind of one of those people who's super bold in a moment. Like, I will stand up for someone. Like, if there's wrong going on, I'll be like the first one being like, getting all mother bearish about whoever it is and like going to bat for someone. And it's after that comes the fear where I'm like, oh shit, what did I just do?
I don't get it now.
It usually takes a night, like the whole night. And then the next morning I have like the butterfly thing, like I'm about to step in front of 10,000 people feeling. And then I'm like, what did I just do? I just opened a Pandora box and I didn't think that through. So then all of a sudden I just didn't want to write, because where the fear came in is I felt like I couldn't be as free to write what I felt compelled to write. Mm-hmm. So I didn't feel as free to write what I felt compelled to write about. So even in the last few days,
now you had to process it through
their eyes.
I wonder what they're going to say. Yeah.
Their sensitivities, being sensitive to them. I mean, sometimes I talk about people who are in my life. I try to be really gentle. I also sometimes talk about things I've learned through people in my life, but it could be like 20 people I learned from. But my one friend is going to think I talked about them specifically and perhaps betrayed their trust or was speaking directly to them. Whereas in Twitter, I mean, I don't know anyone really personally other than a couple of them. So I'm not worried that we have some history that you're going to pull out of the closet and try to see if I'm talking about any of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So, yeah.
So then all of a sudden I felt like I had to cut my tongue off. Like I wasn't, I felt like I was being stuck into a box and I couldn't really speak into anything of serious value because I was afraid of the repercussions. And they're not always repercussions for me. Sometimes they're repercussions for people in my life. You know, if I'm really bold about something, how is that going to portray into future work opportunities for my children? Or, if I'm on a committee or, I am on some committees and some organizations, and how will my thoughts reflect on them? So then I feel this strong responsibility. Like, for example, 2 days ago, I posted on Twitter a pretty bold essay on what we call second order effects of the Me Too movement.
I saw that. Oof, that was bold.
That was bold. I know.
Bold.
I've been holding on that for 3 years.
Oh my goodness.
And it's been just eating at me, but I didn't feel like I could speak it out loud in the groups I was in before without betraying confidence, without looking poorly on an organization. But because of COVID, there's so much space between all of us that I felt, and it took me 15 days, by the way, that was my 15th day essay, 15 days of writing every day to get enough courage to post that. So for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, is I posted a short essay just talking about what I call the Me Too monster, which is something that's happened in the workplace where...
Can we talk about that, by the way?
Okay.
We don't have to. I'm just wondering.
Well, you know what? I told you this is an organic conversation. So that just happened to kind of come up by accident. I'm just going to pull it up so that I can read it again, because I've written a couple of essays since then. I got pretty bold with today's too. So I'm just going to pull up that one essay. And yeah, go ahead. What is it that you want to talk about with it?
Well, I guess it's so fascinating to me because it's one, it was a difficult thing to say, but you said it beautifully. You said it sensitively.
Okay.
And I guess I wanted to sort of hear a bit like about the process of how you got to saying it the way you did, and sort of, maybe a bit about like what lay behind. Yeah, if there's anything you can share about, like, not behind the scenes, but like where the scenes now is, like, do you get what I mean? Like, yeah.
Okay.
But I think that would be difficult because I know, like, I'm sure there's a lot that you can't say, which I understand.
Well, interestingly enough, I also created a mind map that kind of unpacked why women aren't talking about it, why men aren't talking about it. I kind of did it after, and I might post an essay about it later. But just to kind of get everyone on board, 2 days ago, out of 30 essays, my 15th essay, this is what I wrote on Twitter. We're seeing a hashtag Me Too backlash across all organization types. Women are being cheated from essential mentorship that sharpens skills for advancement in organizational movement, creating a monster both men and women are afraid to talk about. And then I hashtag Me Too monster. And within this essay, I talk about, I acknowledge right at the beginning, this is going to be controversial. So obviously my process is knowing this is controversial. And what I address here is that in the corporate world, we're seeing monumental ripple effects. And I'm not talking about the less sexual misconduct, which is a benefit. But I'm talking about how women are being cheated from good mentorship. And in my opinion, the glass ceiling is actually thicker than it was before the Me Too movement, when we'd been making good progress in that area. And so what's happening is I have quite a network in the business community. I have a Bachelor of Management in Business. And of course, over 7,500 tax returns under my belt, you meet a lot of people. And so quite often people I know will come to me and say, hey, do you know somebody who can fit this job description? And in the last 3 years since the Me Too, well, I guess it's been almost 4 years now, 3.5 years since the Me Too movement, I've been hearing more of, we're not legally allowed to ask for only men, but could you only forward us male names that you think would be a good fit? And if they are open for a female candidate, they will say, but I need you to vouch for them. And the reason why is because a lot of times, like senior level management and just a lot of workplaces are predominantly male. And so because of the whole, the Billy Graham movement about, no meet, no eat, and no travel alone with a woman, that has now become policy in a lot of workplaces and organizations, nonprofit organizations, and some insurance policies are actually insisting on it to reduce litigation. So I talk about it in this essay because when I started getting these businesses asking quietly, and they do it in the most gentlest way, like honestly, my heart breaks when a male, it can be a male or a female, who will come to me and say, I know I'm not supposed to ask this. Can you kind of keep it quiet? But will you, we're looking for male candidates only. And so it just really got me thinking, like, what's going on? And I started listening.
Wow.
And I started listening, and I'm hearing more and more and more stories. And it's strong undercurrent that no one's talking about, except for it'll be like a husband will come to me and say, this is what's happening at my wife's work. And she is devastated. She's passed over for promotion. When her boss is coming back from lunch with another male coworker, and they're laughing and bonding. And then he makes a group meeting for all the women in the office and then just sits down and talks to them for lunch. And it's like a totally different type of mentorship that's going on. And there's very few women in senior leadership already. And so we're seeing a major pressure on that senior leadership to have to provide mentorship for all women. And I'm sorry to say, but just because you're another female doesn't make you a good mentor match. It could be a poor mentor match. So not only, and then what's happening too is that women aren't able to perform their jobs as well when they're trying to mentor all the women. So then that looks poor for them performance-wise. They can't do enough. And that could be maybe not even in the workplace, so that the other women are calling them after hours. Hey, this is going on. I don't know how to handle this. Yeah. And so, but mostly I'm seeing women being denied the mentorship that they had before because of all these new rules and policies put in by companies and insurance companies. And so, I kind of blow it wide open, talk about it in this essay. I try to be
this kind of thing that you don't really hear people talk about.
Well, and I was nervous to talk about it. Well, I was nervous to talk about it because sometimes I'm always like, is this my hill to die on? I know a lot of things behind the scenes. Some of it comes from 7,500 tax returns. I'm telling you that when you do those, like finances, you probably know this with psychiatry, but finances is one of the most intimate relationships you will ever have with a client. Because
True.
I used to know more about people than their own doctors and sometimes their own spouses, because like a doctor's never going to see your finances. But I saw all the medical expenses.
And all the things they're paying for.
Well, and people will tell you all their medical, even the stuff they should leave out. So, but they will, but they won't tell you their finances. So I see everything. I used to see everything. And so they think, well, if you already know all that about me, there's not much else you can't know. And so like like in Canada, we call these T4s when you work for a place. I've seen every T4 there possibly is in Canada, from anything from, someone who's getting social assistance, who's living on the street, to CEOs and big companies. And so I'm ones that work in government. So I used to hear the undercurrent, the stuff nobody talks about, the safe place to talk about. So I used to hear it. I used to see the effect on both sides. And because I have business background, I get to see how this affects a business that a lot of people don't understand. So when businesses tell me this, it's never in a malicious way. Like their hearts are breaking for this. Like they don't want it to happen. Some of them are oblivious, sorry to say, but some men are just oblivious to the entire thing. But many of them aren't. So I've been kind of sitting on this. I took it took a bit. It's been a week and a half since I invited my Facebook group. I stopped posting on Facebook and Instagram because I froze.
I was going to ask you what you decided to do.
Honestly, I don't think I would have posted. I wouldn't have posted this essay if I would have been still posting over there, because some of this is coming from people in my own network who've told me this. Some aren't, because I talk to a lot of internationals. I have talked to a few politicians about this, and they're like, we sort of know about it, but no one's really talking about it. And I've had a few politicians, especially the males, go, I had no idea that this was going on. And I've gotten,
this is so funny. Go on. Sorry. Please.
No.
Sorry.
Well, anyway, so that's basically the essay. Where I'm seeing it really strong is in nonprofit organizations, because people for sure aren't talking about it there. But women feel like they can't talk about it for tons of reasons. I mean, one of them is they're worried about the security of their job.
Yeah.
So,
no. It's going to be hard for them. I totally get that as like, it's like being a Black person in the UK or in America or, like many other countries. It's hard to be the one to talk about it.
You can't, because it can cost you your job. And also, if it's serving you, it comes across as vested interest and has less value.
Yeah.
So when I bring this up, I'm a little nervous as a female. I'm calling light to this, but I'm really not calling it out for females specifically. I'm calling it out as a discussion starter, so that, because I want what's best for companies, because you know what, men are missing out too by good mentorship. So if the best fit for you is a female, but they won't put you together because of the no eat, no meet, no travel, you've just been denied good mentorship as well. So it's not just hurting women.
I agree. I fully agree.
Yeah,
I wrote something about diversity recently, and about how we often think of diversity as something to the benefit of the other people. Actually, I think I titled it "Diversity is not for the other people." Right. And that actually it's for all of us, because the truth is we all have blind spots. And so one thing that I teach medical students is like, never trust someone that says they don't have biases, because they're lying, because everyone has biases. That's what it means to be a human.
Everyone
There are
does.
things you can't see. So what you want to do is to throw the biases in the room so that they can push against each other, right? Mm-hmm. Because you can't not have biases. So the next best option is have all the biases.
It's not going to happen. But then you just create more biases. So
but that's what I'm saying. Like, if you have all the biases, then you're not having all sort of one bias deciding everything. You're having them pushing against each other, and then we sort of hopefully can work out, what then happens is someone's thinking, oh, let's do this, but they don't see this, and then you have somebody saying, well, there's this other angle, and they're like, oh, okay. Why should we care about that angle? Well, this is why. And then you sort of have to have a different conversation, right? And that's hopefully what can happen.
But this is
that's what diversity is all about, right? That's what it means to have all of.
But every time we solve a problem, more than likely there's going to be another one that comes up.
Yes.
There just is. I mean, I think there's a case in Africa where they had too many cobras, and so they so the city put an order in place that you got paid out for every cobra that you brought in, dead cobra that you killed and brought in, because they were trying to reduce the population. So that solved the problem to begin with. Cobra population went down. But then, because they put a price on it, guess what happened? People started breeding cobras so that they could kill them and take them in for a price.
It's the law of unintended consequences.
Right. And then
it happens all the time.
Well, exactly. Well, then the government realized what happened. So then they shut the program down. So then everyone released all these cobras because they weren't getting paid for them. And then they ended up with more cobras than what they had to begin with.
With a completely different problem.
And so this is what's kind of happened. This happens a lot. And so all I'm trying to do is let's have a discussion. The Me Too movement was necessary. I mean, it literally, it brought to light a deeply problematic issues. And it was so good. It was for lots of reasons. However, there is a second order effect. Yeah. I like to call them ripple effect. I know some people call them second order effects, but the ripple effect, the ones that come after. And so this is the part, what I wanted to talk about, I guess, and just kind of bring out and say, okay, now we have another problem. And what are we going to do about it? And generally, another reason why I haven't brought it up is because I generally don't like bringing up problems if I haven't thought of alternate solutions. So, and this one,
But sometimes that's the thing. You can't necessarily, because this is tricky. I feel like this is kind of thing that the solution can't come from necessarily one person, really.
Yeah.
Because I totally get it. I totally get it. I think it's complicated, right? Because I think on one hand, there's the possibility of like, not possibility, and I know this happens. There's the case of people thinking, oh, these women are too much trouble, so we're just not going to work with them, right? There will be that. But then there will be those who are like, well, we want to work with them, but we can't think of any safe way, so we're just not going to have to work with them.
Right.
And then there will be those who will be like, well, we want to work with them, we can't think of any safe way, and we're trying to figure out a safe way, and this is the safe way we figured out, but this safe doesn't actually work.
Right. Well, there's
the reason that you've explained, right?
Well, there's another element as well. In my particular case is like, I'm getting, my inbox has gotten quite a few from this posting from a few days ago. And quite a few people have said, you need to post this on LinkedIn. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm so swamped right now. I don't have time to facilitate that conversation because I anticipate quite a disruption over on the LinkedIn platform that I wouldn't be getting over on Twitter. But then I'm like, okay, is this my hill to die on? Because once I say this out loud, really out loud, more than Twitter, then it's like, now this is a conversation that I'm going to be pulled into quite a bit. Is this what I want to talk about for the next 2 or 3 years? Because I have a lot of interest. Well, I don't know. I don't mind planting some seeds in it, but it's not.
You don't want to. It's not your project.
I'm not an extreme feminist either. So I honestly just want to do what's best for everyone, because that serves all of us. So I think that other people are more equipped to answer this question probably than I am. And also because they'd be passionate to answer the question in the best way. Then I'm not passionate. I'm not passionate about solving the problem necessarily for the next 5 to 10 years of my life. So and that's for multiple reasons. Part of it is because, I mean, you don't know this, but I have an autoimmune disease. And for almost 10 years, that's why I had to close my tax practice. For almost 10 years, I was almost completely incapacitated. I mean, I almost died. I was in a wheelchair on and off.
Wow. And
although I've recovered quite a bit, it's still, my health is somewhat fragile. So, and some people say my life expectancy will be 10 years less than everyone else. And also I could go back in that wheelchair if I have a flare again. And so I'm really like, what am I going to use? I really honestly ask myself a lot. What am I going to do with the time I have left? And my one specialist said something in a way that I'll never forget. And he said, Samantha, we are all given one set of tires. Your set's quite worn already, and you have to decide how you're going to use what's left.
Oh, I might steal that. That's not a bad analogy. Huh.
And he set that on me. And
did you find that helpful?
Well, yes. Well, at the time we were talking about treatments, and I had crazy number of cortisone shots, and everyone was criticizing me about it. My kids were young, and we were like literally talking quantity versus quality of life. And my kids were young, and I wanted to invest that time in them. And I knew that doing all these cortisone shots would deteriorate my bones. Like my bones are like 70 inside. I've had multiple surgeries. Every time I go for a surgery, all the nurses and doctors are like, holy cow, like, what did you do? Play 100 sports? It's bad. He used to also call me a China doll. He's like, you look all great on the outside, but you're all broken on the inside. He was a really cool doctor. He was really nice. He was really great. He's retired now. But when he said this to me, I mean, I was literally thinking about investing all I had left with my children while they're at home. So it was really good for him to say that, and that helped me decide on the cortisone shots that I needed so that I could live well. And then, but it's a heavy thing. And now I'm healthier. Somehow I recovered. Well, I've done quite a few things to recover. I've worked very, very hard. But I can
imagine.
That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
However, those words weigh on me. And so when I bring stuff up, I'm a little nervous that, like, it's funny because when I was talking to Casey Lee, she said to me, are you afraid of failure? And like everyone else. And I'm like, honestly, I'm more afraid of success than failure. And she's like, what? And I'm like, once you succeed, other people will start
it's a
to
burden. It brings a burden, doesn't it?
Well, and they start to steer your ship. And I'm like,
ooh. Ooh. Huh. That is interesting. There's something Nassim Taleb says about that. I can't remember. You don't have to look for it. But go on.
So when other people steer your ship, you're no longer in charge of your journey anymore. And so I fear success for that very reason. It's partly why I started a podcast, because I'm like, okay, if I have 10 years before I'm back in a wheelchair, let's just say, I'm going to have a shorter lifespan. I'm going to be 47 next month. And then I'm just like, okay, how am I going to spend this? And I have so much in my mind, so much information I've accumulated. I like to joke that I've lived 100 cat lives, and people then they start reading my story and they're like, how did you do that in one lifetime? You've lived 100 lives in 47 years. It's probably true. So my contribution to the world is like, this is what I've accumulated. Here's the knowledge I have, and like grow from it. And so that's why I started a podcast. So it's like, okay, here's what I have. I want to pass this knowledge that I've accumulated onto you so you can grow. But do I want to continue? I want to impact the world for sure. But do I want to let other people steer my ship? I've let that happen before in my first life.
Wow. It reminds me of something Nassim Taleb once said about wealth being a burden, and that a lot of people have wealth, but they don't realize that actually the wealth becomes a challenge because they end up making choices, but they're not actually making those choices. And those choices are sort of being defined for them. So it's like, you have to eat at this place, and you have to, those kind of things.
Well, you have to fix everything. Like if you can afford 4 vehicles and then they need repairs, well, you're constantly spending your time taking them to repair shops.
Yes, exactly. It's like there's a lot more maintenance now.
Yeah, wealth requires maintenance.
Exactly. And you just sort of reminded me of that.
But success also requires maintenance.
Yeah. And just like the idea of like, and then there's also the stress of what if I lose it, right? Which is why you end up going with all those things. And in fact, a lot of what people do to steer you when you have all of that is actually with the fear of, if you don't do this, you will lose it, that kind of thing.
People also steer you to serve themselves.
But I'm saying the reason that they will give you, because they're not going to come and say, I'm doing this to serve myself. No. But I'm saying the angle is going to be, sort of appealing to your fear of losing it, basically.
So I really want to thank you. It's been, a huge pleasure and a value added to my life. So Same. Your fingerprint's going to stay on me for probably forever. Like, I feel like anyone I encounter, like when we encounter people, they leave a fingerprint on us. And some we just like really go, wow, I'm so glad that one's on me. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and for, this whole chat and like just all of the ideas. I will look through scraps because I feel like there's so much that I can't remember now. Because I noted a few things down, but there's a lot that I didn't take notes on. So there's a lot that I still want to go back and definitely look into. Just like, but it was fun. It was fun. Like if I go by how I'm feeling, this was fun.
Thanks for listening to Bold Perspectives with Samantha Postman. We'd love to hear which insights added value to your life or the lives of others. To help support the podcast, please share the love on social media. Leave a rating or a review. If you don't want to miss out on exclusive content, sign up for her personal email letters. Check out Samantha's website at samanthapostman.com. Follow her on YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. Thanks for your amazing support. We'll see you again. And remember, you are meant to live a better and bolder life.